repeatedly today about the recklessness of CEOs and so forth. But by all these bailouts, these hundreds of billions of dollars, I mean, aren't we essentially sending a message to future gamblers that look, whatever you do, we're going to be there to back you up anyway? So
no. If we structure it properly, then the answer is no. Here's how I would describe the situation. We have a immediate emergency situation in the capital markets, and it is important to provide the Treasury and the Fed broad authority to make sure that the credit markets work, that bills are paid, payrolls are made, that there's liquidity in the system. We have then an institutional problem that has to do with a regulatory system that's inadequate to the new global marketplace. Right? We set up after the Great Depression things like FDI insurance to prevent bank runs. We put in place capital requirements. We made sure that banks had to operate in a prudent way in order to qualify for FDIC insurance. And that part of it worked, except that part of it is just a fraction now of our overall capital flows. So we're going to have to update for the 21st century the same kinds of regulations that we put in place for the 20th century. And if we do that effectively, then we can prevent a situation where folks can take enormous risks knowing that heads I win and tails you lose. That is going to, we're going to have to take some critical steps, and I think the next administration has to be committed to upgrading those financial regulations. But right now, what we have to do is make sure that the capital markets are working so that people, small businesses, folks who are waking up in the morning know that their money market funds are protected. They know that they can make payroll, and that as much as possible, we are able to ensure that on Main Street, some of the pain is limited. And I think what has to be clear is that whatever is set up is not bailing out shareholders and CEOs. They need to take their losses because they were enjoying the upside when the times were good.
Sure. Two questions. You said on the campaign trail you're tough enough, and it looks like there's going to be a tough interaction with the administration over whether there's going to be a stimulus bill added to this overall package.
Right.
I'm told that Pelosi and Reid last night pressed Secretary Paulson. He was non-committal. How tough are you prepared to be as a Democratic nominee to see that a stimulus plan is in this final legislative package? Two, Paulson said this morning hundreds of billions of dollars are going to be required to put this together. With that as a reality, can you, looking forward, still promise the tax cuts to the middle class you talked about, and with capital such a crucial issue right now, do the taxes on dividends and other high-end taxes make sense?
Good. All right. Good questions. There is a relationship between the economic stimulus that I think needs to take place right now and long-term tax cuts for the middle class. One of my central beliefs about our economy has been that a theory that gives more to the most, thinking that it's going to trickle down on everybody else, is not going to work. That the more that we've got broad-based prosperity and families have higher wages and incomes, the better off the economy is going to be as a whole, and that's especially true at a time when we've got recessionary tendencies. So I think now more than ever, we've got to have the kind of broad-based middle-class tax cut that I've talked about for 95% of working families. And effectively, the stimulus package is a down payment on that long-term shift in our tax code. So I think it is very important that even as we stabilize the financial system, that we understand that people have been hurting long before Wall Street was hurting. And that if people are continuing to not be able to pay their bills at the end of the month, if they haven't seen wage increases when their gas and their grocery prices, their health care prices, the price of sending their kids to college have all skyrocketed, that the underlying weakness in terms of consumer purchasing power, the underlying weakness in terms of people being able to make their payments on their homes, that's going to continue to put a drag on the capital market. So this is a fundamental difference in philosophy that also happens, I think, to be the right prescription for what's ailing the economy. But short term, in the next several days and weeks, we've got to make sure that Secretary Paulson and Bernanke have the broad authority they need just to make sure that capital markets are working the way they need to. Yep, go ahead.
You said it's a time for leadership. Senator McCain is outlining a plan today. You say you're waiting on a detailed blueprint. You have a Democratic Economic Brain Trust surrounding you here. Does this suggest you're sitting on the sidelines?
No. No. Well, first of all, I took a look at what Senator McCain had offered, and essentially it's about as detailed as the one paragraph that he had offered yesterday and that I had talked about yesterday, and that one of my chief economic advisors, Paulson, had written about Volcker had written about just a couple of days ago in the Wall Street Journal. I am glad to see that Senator McCain agrees with not just me, but also Secretary Paulson and Bernanke, that at some point we're going to need some sort of institutionalized structure to deal with the underlying problems of bad mortgages and some of the bad assets that some of these markets have. In my conversations with Secretary Paulson, Bernanke, as well as my advisors, what is absolutely clear is that you don't put together something like that on the come. You don't do it in a day. We've got to do it in an intelligent, systematic, thoughtful fashion. I'm much less interested at this point in scoring political points than I am making sure that we have a structure in place that is sound and is actually going to work. Right now, though, the problem is the capital markets and making sure that we get something in place quickly to ensure that the Treasury Secretary and the Fed have the authority they need to get capital flowing again. And I think that what we don't want to do is get too bogged down in some complicated legislative wrangling. There's going to be a lot of time for us to be in a big argument about how some of these future plans should be structured.